You lied about your bloodline. Alien princess protected human lover from royal execution. The Zirathi capital world floated like a jewel in space, wrapped in rings of silver light and guarded by thousands of war platforms. To most species, it was a symbol of power and fear. To humans, it was a reminder of how small they were in the galaxy. Evan Hale stood inside the grand tribunal hall, his hands restrained behind his back, his heart steady only because panic would change nothing. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadows, carved with symbols of bloodlines that ruled entire star systems. Tall Zirathi nobles filled the chamber, their armored forms glowing faintly as their bioluminescent crests pulsed with judgment. He was human. That alone was enough to end his life. The charge echoed again through the hall, spoken in a cold, ceremonial tone. Evan Hale, human-born, you are accused of violating sacred bloodline law. You stand guilty of forming an intimate bond with Princess Valeth of the Zirathi Imperium. Murmurs rippled through the nobles, disgust, anger, shock. A human dared to touch royalty. Evan kept his eyes forward. He had known this moment might come. He had just hoped it wouldn't. Princess Valeth stood above them on the elevated dais, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She wore ceremonial armor instead of royal silk, a sign of Judgment Day. To the council, she looked calm. To Evan, who had learned her smallest changes, she looked like a storm held barely in place. Their eyes did not meet. That was on purpose. The High Arbiter stepped forward, his voice heavy with authority. The punishment is execution by genetic cleansing. The bloodline must remain pure. A soft hum filled the room as the execution platform activated beneath Evan's feet. Pale light wrapped around his body, scanning, preparing. Evan breathed out slowly. He did not beg. Humans learned quickly that begging in alien courts only made things worse. Then something happened that no one expected. Stop! The single word cut through the chamber like a blade. Princess Valeth stepped forward. Gasps echoed. Zirathi royalty did not interrupt tribunal judgments ever. The High Arbiter turned toward her, stunned. Your Highness, this proceeding. I know exactly what it is, Valeth said. Her voice was calm, but it carried power. And it is flawed. The light around Evan flickered and shut down. Confusion spread like wildfire. Valeth descended the steps slowly, every movement deliberate. You accuse this human of contaminating the royal bloodline. That accusation assumes he is genetically incompatible. The Arbiter's crest flared. He is human. Yes, Valeth replied, but not entirely. Silence fell so deep Evan could hear his own heartbeat. Evan turned his head slightly, disbelief flashing through his eyes. Not entirely human. Valeth continued before anyone could interrupt her. Imperial law forbids execution if there is even a trace of ancestral compatibility with Zirathi lineage. I invoke that law. The hall erupted. Shouts echoed. Crests flared violently. Several council members rose from their seats. You lie, one noble roared. A human has no such blood, another snapped. This is treason, a third hissed. The High Arbiter raised both hands for silence. Princess Valeth, such a claim demands proof. False testimony is punishable even for royalty. I am aware, she said. Evan stared at her now. This was madness. If she failed, she would fall with him. The Arbiter turned toward the genetic masters. Begin verification immediately. Golden machines unfolded from the walls, ancient devices older than most empires. A beam of light scanned Evan again, deeper this time, searching beyond surface biology. Seconds passed, then minutes. The council waited tense. Then the lead genetic master froze. Its voice came out slow, uncertain. This does not match human records. The hall went silent again, but this time it was not disbelief, it was fear. Explain, the Arbiter ordered. There are sequences here that should not exist, the master said. They are dormant, locked. Older than recorded Zirathi history. Murmurs turned uneasy. Valeth lifted her chin. Then the execution must remain suspended. The arbiter hesitated. Finally, he nodded once. By law, yes. The prisoner is remanded to holding. Full investigation will follow. The restraints on Evan's wrists released with a soft click. As guards escorted him away, Evan finally met Valith's eyes. For a brief moment, her control cracked. He saw fear there, and resolve. Later, in the holding chamber, Evan sat alone behind a transparent barrier. The room was silent, sterile, and far too bright. He replayed her words again and again. Not entirely human. The door slid open without warning. Valith entered alone. Guards remained outside. This meeting was illegal, but laws bent around her like gravity. Evan stood quickly. "You lied." "Yes," she said. "You risked everything." "Yes," he swallowed. "Why?" She stepped closer to the barrier. "Because letting you die would have been easier, and I refuse to choose easy." Evan shook his head. "They'll tear your claim apart." She met his gaze steadily. "They already started, but they found something." "What?" he asked quietly. Valith looked away for the first time. "I did not lie about everything." A chill ran through him. "Evan," she said softly, "your species was never weak. You were hidden." Before he could respond, alarms sounded in the distance. Heavy, controlled, not panic but urgency. Valith straightened. "They will not execute you now, but they will be afraid of you." She turned to leave, then paused. "Whatever happens next, remember this. I did not save you because you are special." She looked back at him, eyes glowing faintly. "I saved you because you are human." The door closed. Evan sat back down slowly, his mind racing. Somewhere deep in his cells, something ancient slept. And the galaxy had just noticed. The investigation did not slow down. It became faster, quieter, and far more dangerous. Deep inside the Zirathi capital, beneath layers of shields and ancient stone, a sealed chamber opened for the first time in thousands of cycles. Only the highest genetic masters and the High Arbiter were allowed inside. What they studied there was not meant for public knowledge. Evan Hale sat in his holding chamber, unaware of how close the galaxy stood to a truth it had buried long ago. The barrier around him remained active, but no guards watched him anymore. That alone told him everything. Fear had replaced certainty. Hours passed, then days. Princess Valith was summoned again and again before the council. Each time the questions grew sharper. Where did the human acquire this genetic structure? "The human did not acquire it," she said during one session. "He inherited it." "Inherited from whom?" a noble demanded. Valith met their gaze. "From humanity." That answer disturbed them more than any lie. Meanwhile, the genetic masters uncovered deeper layers in Evan's DNA. Sequences folded within sequences, inactive but intact, as if waiting. These were not weapons, not enhancements. They were systems of balance, adaptation, survival. One of the oldest masters spoke in a shaking voice. "This design predates all current empires, including ours." The High Arbiter stiffened. "Impossible." The master projected ancient data across the chamber. Star maps, collapsed civilizations, extinction-level events repeating across time, and always hidden at the edges. Humans, not ruling, not conquering, enduring. "They were placed," the master said slowly, "or evolved with purpose. When ecosystems collapse, when empires burn themselves out, humans remain. They stabilize, they rebuild." A terrible understanding spread through the chamber. "Fail-safes," someone whispered. The High Arbiter closed his eyes. Zirathi supremacy was built on strength and purity, but humans were built on survival. The council ordered absolute secrecy, but secrets have weight, and weight bends systems. Whispers spread through the palace. The execution delay became public. The word precursor slipped into private conversations. Humans across the capital noticed changes overnight: increased surveillance, restricted access, quiet fear behind polite faces. Evan felt it too. When Valith finally returned to him, she looked exhausted. "They know," he said simply. "Yes," she replied. "How bad?" They are trying to decide whether killing you will cause more damage than keeping you alive. Evan laughed softly. That's new. Valith studied him. You are not afraid. I am, he said, but humans learned long ago that fear doesn't stop outcomes. Action does. She smiled faintly. That may be the most dangerous thing about you. Another council session was called. This one was broadcast across the Imperium. Not by choice, but by necessity. Too many nobles demanded answers. Too many systems watched closely. The High Arbiter addressed the galaxy. The execution of the human Evan Hale is permanently annulled. Shock rippled across worlds. Further, the Imperium recognizes humanity as a protected sapient species under ancient interstellar law. Outrage followed. Valith stepped forward before chaos could erupt. You ruled through strength, she said calmly. You believed dominance meant survival. You were wrong. Her voice carried to every corner of the chamber, to every listening system. Humans survived what we erased ourselves from history. They did not conquer us because they did not need to. They endure, and endurance outlasts power. A noble shouted, "You would place them above us." Valith turned slowly. "No, I place them beside us, and I choose one of them." She reached out her hand. Evan stepped forward. Gasps echoed again, but this time they were different, not disgust, not rage, realization. "I name Evan Hale my consort," Valith said. "By choice. By law, by future necessity." Silence followed. The High Arbiter stared at them both, then lowered his head. So recorded. Across the Imperium, something ancient shifted. Far from the capital, on forgotten colonies and quiet stations, dormant human systems stirred. Not weapons. Not fleets. Signals, backups, contingencies, just in case. Evan and Valith stood together as the chamber slowly emptied. They did not touch. They did not need to. The galaxy had made its move. Humanity would respond the same way it always had, by surviving. And this time by being seen. The galaxy did not change in one day. It never did. Change came slowly, then all at once. After the Council's declaration, silence followed. Not peace, not celebration. Silence filled with waiting. Worlds watched the Zirathi Imperium carefully, measuring every signal, every movement. Humanity was no longer invisible, and that made many powers uneasy. Evan Hale felt the change most clearly in small moments. He was no longer held behind a barrier. He walked the palace halls freely now, though guards still followed at a respectful distance. Zirathi nobles no longer looked at him with open disgust. Instead, they watched him the way one watches a storm forming far away. Unsure if it would pass or break everything in its path, Valith remained busy. Council sessions stretched late into the artificial night. Trade leaders demanded explanations. Military advisors asked dangerous questions. Ancient allies suddenly remembered old treaties they had ignored for centuries. Humanity had become relevant. That relevance came with pressure. One cycle after the announcement, the first challenge arrived. A coalition of outer systems sent a formal objection. They refused to recognize humans as protected or equal. They demanded proof, not of ancient genetics, but of value, strength, contribution. If humans wish to stand among empires, the message declared, then they must demonstrate worth beyond survival. The council debated fiercely. Some argued for rejection. Others warned that refusing would look like fear. The High Arbiter remained silent until Valith finally spoke. "Humans do not prove worth through domination," she said. "They prove it through responsibility." Eyes turned to her. "I propose a test," she continued, "not of force but of crisis." The coalition accepted immediately. They assumed humans would fail. A dying system was chosen, a star growing unstable, civilizations evacuating in panic. The problem had defeated every advanced model. Collapse was considered inevitable. The task was simple: save what could be saved. Evan stood beside Valith as the decision was made public. "They're setting us up," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "They expect you to choose who lives and who is lost." Evan nodded slowly. Then we choose everyone. Humanity's response was not a fleet of warships, it was people, engineers, analysts, disaster planners, terraformers. Old ship captains who had seen too many colonies die and refused to watch another fade quietly. They arrived without ceremony. Human ships were not beautiful. They were practical, scarred, modified 100 times. Each one told a story of repair instead of replacement. The dying system became a hive of activity. Human teams mapped evacuation routes, but also something more ambitious: stabilization, containment, delay. They did not promise miracles, they promised effort. Evan worked constantly, coordinating between alien governments and human crews. He slept little. Valith watched from afar at first, then closer, until she stood beside him on command decks and listening stations. "This is who you are," she said once, not as a question. Evan smiled tiredly. "We learned a long time ago that waiting for permission means losing time. The star did not stabilize completely. It was impossible, but the system did not die. Planets were shielded long enough for evacuation. Habitats were moved. Ecosystems preserved in fragments. Lives counted in billions were saved. The coalition had no answer. The galaxy watched humans do something no empire had tried in centuries. They chose care over control. Afterward, the accusations faded. The objections quieted. Recognition followed, not loudly but permanently. Back on the capital world, the atmosphere changed again. Fear gave way to calculation. Calculation turned into acceptance. Some Zerathi nobles approached Evan openly now. They asked questions. They listened. "You do not rule," one elder said. "You endure." "Yes," Evan replied, "and we help others endure too." That was the moment the elder bowed. Valith saw it from across the chamber. She felt something loosen inside her chest that she had carried her entire life. Power no longer rested on blood alone. It rested on choice. Later, when the palace quieted, Valith and Evan stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. No guards stood close. None were needed. "You changed them," she said softly. "No," Evan replied. "They changed themselves. We just reminded them it was possible." She studied him. "You never wanted power." "I wanted survival," he said. "Power is what happens when survival works." Valith took his hand then, openly, without fear. Below them, no alarm sounded. No protests rose. The Imperium accepted what it had become. In distant space, ancient human systems powered down again. They had awakened just long enough to confirm something important. Humanity was no longer alone. Evan looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them were worlds that would one day face collapse, fear, and impossible choices. This time, humans would not be hidden. They would arrive quietly and help the galaxy survive itself. The future did not belong to the strongest. It belonged to those who stayed. And humanity had always stayed. The galaxy learned a hard lesson after humanity was finally seen. Attention attracts pressure. Months after the crisis system was saved, new problems began to rise. Not wars, not open threats. Smaller things. Trade routes failing at the edges. Colonies reporting strange shortages. Long-stable alliances breaking apart without clear reason. At first, many blamed humans. "They interfere," some said. "They change balance," others whispered. Evan Hale heard the rumors before anyone told him officially. Humans had always been blamed easily. It was an old habit of the galaxy. Valith listened carefully during council sessions. Patterns formed. Too many failures in places where no empire openly ruled. Too much quiet coordination. "This is not fear," she said one evening after a long meeting. "This is testing." "Testing what?" Evan asked. "Us," she replied. "And you." The truth surfaced slowly. A hidden power, not ancient like the precursors, but young and ambitious, was pushing systems into collapse. Not to destroy them, but to watch how the new order responded. They wanted to see if humanity would crack. The council argued again. Some demanded military response. Others warned that showing force would prove the accusations right. Evan stood before them, human representatives now seated behind him for the first time. "You are asking the wrong question," he said calmly. "You are asking how to stop them." The chamber quieted. "The right question is why they think this will work." A noble scoffed. "Because humans are untested," Evan nodded. "Exactly, so let us be tested the right way." Valith understood instantly. "You want to go," she said. "Yes," Evan replied, "not as a ruler, not as a threat, as a human." The plan shocked the council. Evan would travel openly to the failing systems. No fleet, no display of power, only human aid teams and transparent cooperation. Every move broadcast, every decision recorded. If the hidden power wanted to watch, they would be forced to watch everything. The first system was tense. Locals expected judgment or control. They received neither. Human teams listened first. "What do you need?" they asked. Sometimes the answer was food, sometimes repair tools, sometimes just time to breathe. Humans gave what they could. When they could not fix something, they said so honestly. That honesty confused many species more than strength ever had. Slowly, systems stabilized again. Then the Watchers revealed themselves. A delegation arrived unannounced during Evan's visit to a border station. Tall, sharp-featured beings who called themselves the Cathari Union. They spoke politely and coldly. "You intervene without authority," their envoy said. Evan met their gaze. "We intervene with consent. You disrupt natural collapse." "There is nothing natural about engineered suffering," Evan replied. The Cathari envoy studied him. "You believe endurance gives you moral authority." "No," Evan said. "Responsibility does." That answer spread faster than any signal. The Cathari withdrew, not defeated. Evaluating. Back on the capital world, Valith faced pressure of her own. Some nobles feared that humanity's example weakened old control systems. Others saw opportunity. A vote was called. One that would decide whether the Imperium would formally bind its future to humanity's methods. Valith stood before them alone this time. "You fear losing power," she said, "but power that cannot change will always fall." Silence followed. The vote passed by the smallest margin in recorded history. The Imperium chose adaptation. Evan returned weeks later, tired, older somehow, but smiling. "They're still watching," he told Valith as they walked the gardens together. "Yes," she replied. "Let them." Above them, stars burned quietly. Humanity had not taken control of the galaxy. It had done something far more dangerous. It had shown another way to survive. And now, the galaxy could not unsee it.